Welcome to round 5 of this, the first round in the top cut of the Johannesburg Championships. We have Raymond Rattey on the left hand side and we have Jaco on the right. Raymond was just showing his mulligan to Jaco. He can't start because he did not have basic Pokemon in his hand, so he needs to draw again, and then Jaco may, important word there, may draw another card after he's set up his active Pokemon, and he mulligans again. Jaco leans back after relaxing. Yes, we were lucky enough in the Johannesburg Championships to have enough players to have 4 players go through to the top cut. The 4 players were Raymond, Jaco, Victor and Ricky. Victor and Ricky are busy battling it out on table 2 while this is happening. And we're going to take a look at the best of 3 for these 2 players, and we're going to show you all the games that happened in this round. And they were very, very good games, so stay tuned. Raymond's setting out his prizes, and we should be able to get into the game just now. Raymond's deck runs Ampharos and Typhlosion. He tries to put as many energy as possible as he can on his side while punishing his opponent on the other side with energy damage from conductivity. Jaco's style in this particular tournament was all behind Regigigas, and he was using Regigigas as a front, and then using Reniclus and what was the other leaf Pokemon's name's just gone out of my head, but we'll see it just now, to heal. So he can, with Regigigas, he can put up a huge Pokemon in the front and take all the damage. With Reniclus he can move it all around, and then he can heal with Superior Heal with Servine. So we turn it over. They've eventually decided who's going to go first. It looks like Jaco's going to go first, and he's got his Virizion, and there's a Zekrom on the other side, on Raymond Rattey's side. Virizion, Petal, Solosis, and he's got a Regigigas out already on Jaco's side. There was a Cherin to draw 3 cards. You'll start to see how the Snivy, Servine, Superior comes out on Jaco's side, and once that's out and he's got 2 of them in his deck, he just heals and heals and heals, and with Reniclus spreading out the damage or moving it all to Regigigas to do his Giga Hammer, it's quite an effective play, but it requires a lot of setup. Raymond's doing his Cherin again after adding a double colorless onto Zekrom, and doing Pokemon communication with a normal Ampharos, not an Ampharos Prime. Jaco's got a couple of tricks up his sleeve with his deck, where he likes to stall a little bit with his Lilligants, and it works very, very well, especially when Cleffa comes out and eeks all the time and stays asleep. So that was a Pokemon communication for a Reshiram, and there'll be an outrage for 20 damage there. There's Jaco's Lilligant out already, and there's Cleffa out as well. Speak of those 2 cards, and then Jaco plays them. Raymond's busy asking what Eek does. Eek requires no energy, and he can shuffle in his hand into his deck and draw 6 cards, and Cleffa is now asleep. Cleffa has sweet baby face, sweet sleeping face, which makes Raymond not be able to cause any damage to Cleffa while she's asleep. Where if she wakes up, then damage can be dealt. That was another Cherin. Seems to be the popular supporter in this match, and that was an evolution from Solosis to Reniclus. Yes, it was Reniclus there. And Jaco's making a decision. Jaco still has not received. Okay, there's placing that's a double colorless energy. But in the beginning there, he doesn't really have energy. Jaco actually struggled a lot through this tournament without any energy. There's another Cherin being played. Fire energy attached to Reshiram. So Jaco looks to be set up. He doesn't have any Snivy's out yet, so Snivy needs to come through, and then he's going to get a very, very good setup. There we go, there's the Reniclus out. Sorry, it wasn't Reniclus in the previous round. Now the Reniclus is out. And Reniclus's ability is damage swap. As often as Jaco likes, during his turn before he attacks, he may move one damage counter from one of his Pokemon to another one of his Pokemon. You have to be very careful, because the minute you let go of the dice, if there's enough damage on that Pokemon, it knocks it out. So he has to. You'll see he'll take careful calculations and hold the dice until he's absolutely sure that that's how he wants to move it. He also obviously needs to keep it very clear. He does a Pokemon communication, and he's looking for another Pokemon. I think he's looking for his Snivy. There we go, there's the Snivy. So the Snivy's out now. Jaco's looking to make his setup as fast as he possibly can with that Virizion in the front there. Drawing 2 cards every turn really helps, but that's only when it has energy on it. Right now the only energy he has is the energy on the Regigigas, and I think that's a double colorless. So Reniclus is out. Like I was saying, Jaco will make very, very careful calculations with Reniclus. Just takes dropping a dice with 3 on Cleffa, and Cleffa's knocked out. Jaco also runs twins, which is quite clever, because now they draw it at 6 prizes. So if he gets his twins and he really wants the 2 cards that he needs to set up, with Reniclus he can just move 3 damage to Cleffa, give his opponent a prize, and draw twins without even having to worry about a turn or anything else like that. And he can instantly use twins because he's below in prizes, and he can search his deck for any 2 cards. Raymond's turn again, and another fire attached to Reshiram. So Zekrom's sitting there busy outraging. I think there was only one outrage, because I think Raymond's caught on that the fact that Jaco doesn't have any energy, so Virizion's double draw can't really help at this point in time. There's a Professor Oak's new theory where he can shuffle his hand into his deck, and Raymond draws 6 cards. Raymond's old school player. He likes to keep his supporters out. Something I'm trying to learn as well. It's a very good practice. Leave your supporter out on the table next to your active Pokemon, so that you know that you've placed a supporter that turn. That way you don't try and place 2 supporters and then you're not sure if you've placed a supporter or not. There's another outrage for 20. Raymond also put down a Cyndaquil, and he's about to try and get that through to a Typhlosion. There's another Pokemon communication, and I'm sure Jaco will look for a Servine. Let's see what he does here, because Servine would be the next thing that he needs to get completely set up. He already has the Regigigas, he's got the Reniclus, he's got the Lilligant to do even more stalling. There we go. There's the Servine. He's pulled out the Servine with Pokemon communication. Let's see how this battle happens. Not too sure if Raymond runs catches, but catches would be ideal here, because every now and again you want to, if someone has a huge setup on the bench, you just catch out the right Pokemon. And Jaco has not put down that Servine that he's done a Pokemon communication for. You need to put it down, Jaco. And there's a switch, and so that he can eek. He's obviously not happy with his hand. He doesn't have any energy. He eeks, and he forgot to put the Servine down. This just shows you that, you know, at this type of level the pressure is really on, and sometimes players forget to do some things. And there's good tutorials on, you know, there's even using dice to help you remember to do certain things in an order. So Jaco did forget. I don't think there's dice or any method with dice that you can remember to put the evolution of the card that you just searched with Pokemon communication. But Jaco did forget to put down that Servine, and then he shuffled his hand into his deck. Eek is an attack, so now it's Raymond's turn after Jaco draws 6 cards, and there's some energy for Jaco now, so now he can actually start using his deck. Jaco's using a dice to flip a coin instead, and the dice is evens is heads and tails is odds, and that was odds. So no, that was heads, so that means that Cleffa wakes up. This means that Cleffa can get some damage onto her. There's a Mareep that goes down on Raymond's side. And has he got the Quilava to evolve his Cyndaquil? He played a Cherin, so he drew 3. No, he doesn't have it, so he just does an outrage to Cleffer. Now when Jaco gets his turn, he can actually take that 2 damage instantly off Cleffer, and as long as Zekrom can only do 20 damage, Jaco will keep on moving the 20 damage off, maybe moving it to Rediclus to power up some of his attacks. Cleffer has no retreat cost, so Cleffer just gets retreated, sitting there with her lovely 2, and Lilligant comes forward to Bemusing Aroma. Bemusing Aroma is it's quite a nice powerful spell. Flip a coin, and if it's heads, the defending Pokemon is now paralyzed and poisoned. If tails, the defending Pokemon is confused. So either way, you really get some sort of status put onto the defending Pokemon. That was tails, so Zekrom is confused and pointed towards his trainer. That was another Cherin, the most popular most popular supporter in the round. And Raymond draws 3 more cards. There's another energy placed onto Reshiram, so Reshiram can now blue flare. Even when you're confused, you can still retreat, so the energy gets taken off. 2 retreat costs for Zekrom. And then Reshiram comes forward. There's a rare candy. Now he's got his Ampharos Prime. Ampharos Prime is out, which means now every single time that Jaco wants to add an energy onto his side, he gets 10 damage. It's a Pokebody. It's called Connectivity. Whenever opponent attaches an energy card from his or her hand, sorry about that, then they need to place 1 damage counter onto that Pokemon. Regigigas is out after Lilligant got blue flared. Blue flare needs you to discard 2 fire energy, which is fine because when Raymond gets his Typhlosion out, he can just take that fire energy straight from his discard pile onto his Pokemon, giving them 1 damage, but it's quite a useful skill to have. There's a double colorless on Regigigas. Must have been mistaken. Oh yes, Regigigas didn't get an energy. Regigigas got a Rocky Helmet. He never got a double colorless on him. So this is the first double colorless that Regigigas has got. He can't attack yet, but with that Rediclus behind there, Regigigas' attack of Raging Hammer will actually do quite a bit of damage. It does 50, and then it does 10 more for every damage counter on Regigigas. Regigigas has got 180 hit points. So with 170 hit points of damage, it can do a total of 220 damage to any Pokemon, and there aren't any Pokemon with that amount of hit points, so he can really KO any Pokemon that he wants now. But obviously you don't want to leave it too vulnerable, so Jaco does some serious calculations to make sure that the right amount of damage is applied. So with Ampharos Prime, Quilava comes out to Cyndaquil comes out to the table. Quilava's already been there. But it's Quilava that's out on top now. So it's ready. There's a damage counter moved from Jaco. Jaco's now calculating. Huge calculations on Jaco's side. He wants to do just the right amount of damage, but he doesn't want to take his chances and actually get more damage from Outrage from Reshiram. So there was a 20 damage there, and then I think the Outrage came through from Regigigas. Sorry, I missed that. But because of the Rocky Helmet, Reshiram gets 20 as well. Now Regigigas has his 3rd energy, so he can actually do his Giga Power, which does 60 damage, and then he can have it do another 20 damage, but then it does another 20 damage to him. There's Rediclus's ability of damage swap coming into play, and he's moving damage around. I'm going to try and keep a calculation here, but it looks like Regigigas would have moved a 2 damage onto Rediclus, and then given the turn over to Raymond. What he's trying to do is make sure that Regigigas stays on a maximum of 50 damage. And if he goes over to 60, then Raymond can just blue flare and 180 damage. Bye bye Regigigas, and 2 prizes for Raymond. Raymond blue flares anyway takes the extra 20 damage from Rocky Helmet and gives 120 damage onto Regigigas. So Regigigas will be sitting there with, I think he's got 130 damage on him. And now Jaco's going to do some moving. Regigigas has 4 energy on, so here comes that Raging Hammer. And let's see what he moves. He's going to take, that's 40 off and put it onto Servine, onto Snivy. And then he's going to do a Raging Hammer for exactly 90, because Reshiram would have had 40 damage on him and 130 damage Pokemon. Jaco will just make sure that there's just enough damage on Regigigas to do just the right amount of damage to the Pokemon, because he doesn't want any surprises. So that means with Raging Hammer's 50 and an extra 40 needed, Regigigas would have 40 damage left on him, just to give you a count. Zekrom comes up. He's already got 2 damage on him. And a pass. Raymond has no energy to put onto Zekrom, so it's just passed over to Jaco. And Jaco is playing Professor Oak's New Theory. Shuffle his hand in and draw 6 brand new cards. Very handy card. Very nice supporter. Unfortunately only one supporter at a time, but with Jaco he's got Eek. Not that he wants to retreat Regigigas, because I think Regigigas retreat cost is 4 energy, so that would be quite expensive just to get another new hand. But Eek is very handy to have in case you don't have those supporters and you're looking for them. Jaco's cards seem to be upside down in both ways, but that's pretty impressive because he doesn't straighten. Okay, now he's straightening them. Some of them he still hasn't straightened. He can read upside down. Jaco's got some energy, but he really only needs that 4 energy on Regigigas. After that, Regigigas will do most of the damage in this game, and let's see if Raymond can build up enough energy to. So Zekrom had 20 health, health on him, and Regigigas would have done 110. So Regigigas should have 60 damage on him right now. That was from the outrage, probably. No, it wasn't from the outrage. Jaco must have moved some energy, but that was enough to knock out Zekrom. Now comes Ampharos. Ampharos can actually do some attacks and not just sit there as a prime and use connectivity. Ampharos Prime has Lightning Crash, which does 40 damage. Then Raymond flips a coin. If heads, it does 40 damage plus 40 more. If tails, then discard an energy attached to the defending Pokemon. So it's quite a nice attack. And then discarding more energy means that you need to add more energy. Oh yes, Regigigas got the 20 damage from adding energy to himself. Jaco added a double colorless, and that's where that extra 20 came that I missed out on the first time. So Ampharos is sitting there. It's actually quite a confusing game with all the damage being swapped. There goes the coin. Cheers, off the table, so we need to flip it again. Jaco's asking what Ampharos Prime's actual attack does, because not many people see that. But Raymond needs to pull out whatever he can to make these attacks happen. So Ampharos Prime is there. Read the card some more. Oh yes, okay. It's always good to read the cards. You never know what tiny little words might change the meaning and the way that you think of things. So he got a tails there. No, he didn't. Yes, he got a tails. There goes the energy moved off. There removes the double colors and 40 damage done to Regigigas. So now Regigigas can't do any of his attacks, and Jaco does have a double colorless in his hand, but the minute he adds that, that's 2 extra damage. He needs to move damage around with Reniclus to make sure everything's hunky-dory. Okay, so Regigigas should have around 90 damage plus 30 to give it 120, and then Ekin Raging Hammer. Needs 120 damage to... Okay, 30 moved off. It needs 120 damage to take out Ampharos. Ampharos has already got 4 damage counters, so it really only needs 80, so it actually only needs 3 damage counters on it. See, Jaco's trying to add up the numbers just to make sure. He's got to keep that Regigigas quite safe, because the minute that big wall of his goes down, then the rest of the deck is actually very exposed. A lot of grass Pokemon there, and with Reshiram on the other side, that's going to be quite hectic. Here comes the extra 2 damage. I'm sure he would only need 30 damage on him, plus the 50 from Raging Hammer, 30 for 10 for every damage counter on him, that's 80, and Ampharos is knocked out. So he really only needs to have 30. If he has any more on there, okay, he's taking some more off. If he has any more on there, then that's just playing with fire. Calculate it again. Jaco's up 4 prizes to 5. Raymond's only got 1 prize so far. So this is quite important. In the best of 3, it's really important to win the first game in case there isn't enough time for the rest of them. So if you run out of time and the second game's not complete, obviously only the first one counts. If the second game is complete and the third one isn't far enough, then the first game counts, especially in the end. There we go. Yak has done just the right amount of damage to take out Ampharos Prime. And I do apologize for the camera shaking there. Whenever Jaco puts his arms on the tables, and you can see he's either moving or just breathing would have actually knocked that table. Next time I'll try and set up the camera so that it's on the chair and not on the table. That's the normal Ampharos that's out there with 1 energy on it. I don't really think it's going to last too long. Tell you what the normal Ampharos has got. It has an acceleration bolt. It does 30 damage, and then Raymond can search his deck for 2 basic energy cards and attach them to any one of his Pokemon. Then he shuffles his deck afterwards. And it does 30 damage, which is quite nice. Then it does Thunder for lightning in 2 colors. He flips a coin. If tails, Ampharos does 20 damage to himself, but Thunder does 80 damage to the defending Pokemon, which is actually quite nice. So because there's only 1 energy there, that must have been an acceleration bolt for 30 more energy, so that would put Regigigas on 60 energy. Another fire energy placed onto Quilava. Quilava hasn't gone quite into Typhlosion yet, but and I can't really see Raymond's hand, but it would be soon. Both players are sitting with quite a huge hand. There's a lot of cards in there. Another Pokemon communication. Looking once again for Servine. Jaco could have been looking for not for Servine this time, because he discarded Servine. I wonder if he realizes now that while he's looking for Servine, maybe got some deja vu. Am I not supposed to be looking for a superior? Haven't I done this already? I'd like to be healing some of the damage that's sitting on all my Pokemon here. So he would be healing right now. So let's see if that actually affects the game, that he had to search for Servine twice. More energy placed, and let's see what we're going to do. Another Regigigas placed down, just as another backup. I think Jaco only runs 2 Regigigases, more than enough. You don't really need more, just in case one is prized. If both of them are prized, there are a few other things that Jaco can do, but the real strength of his deck is not at its fullest. Obviously the deck runs on those 3 Pokemon, so if one of them is taken out of the equation, then life becomes very difficult. So adding up the damage, Ampharos needs 120 again, so there was no damage on Ampharos, so there would have been 50 plus another 70, so there's 70 damage left on Regigigas. That's if Jaco's trying to keep the minimum amount of damage. So there was an evolve, so he's putting out his Quilava, and there's a Professor Oak's new theory. I'm sure Raymond's wanting to see a Typhlosion come out. I'd rather use Typhlosion's attacks than than Quilavas. Even if it is just a basic Typhlosion, any Typhlosion will do right now. More damage he can put out there before the heal starts coming out, the better his chances are. Raymond just did a mistake there. He actually shuffled his hand in, and then he looked at one of his prize cards. I remember this was the only caution that I actually handed out for the game. So I just cautioned Raymond not to do that. Obviously it was an accident, he called me straight over, and I gave them a caution, and then I said, just to make it fair, if Raymond takes another prize, or when he does, then Jaco can pick which prize is actually taken, just so Raymond doesn't go and pick a prize over and above that card. That's the best we could do. It was an accident. So Raymond carries on. It was Typhlosion that has been put on there. So Typhlosion does his Fire Spin, which does 120 damage and discards 2 energy from Typhlosion. That's quite a lot of damage to put out on Regigigas. Let's hope that that stays. It obviously won't stay. It'll get moved around. Jaco's got lots of damage counters on every single one of his Pokemon there, so he's going to have to now be very, very careful how he moves those dice. Any ill placement and Raymond spots it, then those Pokemon get knocked out. The damage gets resolved, and one knocked out Pokemon and a prize for Raymond. That's one of the new rules that came with Black and White. Yes, some more damage swap. Well, that was a damage swap. You take this, I'll take that. But it's a new rule in Black and White that when you're damage swapping, you have to be very, very careful. But the new rule in Black and White is that even if Jaco knocks out his own Pokemon, Raymond still gets a prize. Whereas previously, you would actually have to do the damage yourself. That led to ease of players knocking out their own Pokemons to avoid prizes. Typhlosion obviously knocked out by Regigigas' Raging Hammer again. Leaves Jaco on 1 prize. Raymond's only got 2 Pokemon. He's got his Zekrom and his Thundurus. No energy on it. I don't see this ending well for Raymond. I actually think it might end right now, and Jaco might actually win the first round of this best of 3. Okay, I think Raymond's admitted defeat, showing cards to Jaco, saying, oh, I could have done this, but you didn't. So first game goes to Jaco.